everybody. Welcome back to the Covenant Eyes podcast. Karen Potter here with Covenant Eyes, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Brandon Clark. Hi, Brandon.
Hi, Karen. How's it going today?
It's going fantastic. I'm really excited about today's show. We always have great guests, but today we get to talk about a new documentary that's being released that I think is going to have a profound impact on culture. And I think rightfully so, because we need to start talking about this. So I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of passionate about it. I love when people, put out content that helps bring awareness and education to a topic that we are so passionate about. So I'm excited to dive in. But before we do that, I do want to welcome all of our guests to the podcast. Make sure you subscribe and give us a like on all the app stores so that we can get all that feedback, and the algorithm loves that stuff. So make sure you do that for us. We appreciate it. And Brandon, do you want to kick us off with an introduction to today's guest?
Yeah, well, we're really excited to welcome a guest who we've had on previously and are pleased and honored to have on again. We've got Jaco Booyens of Jaco Booyens Ministries. We talked last year, had a great conversation, and Karen, he actually has a new film out now. Last night, he'll be joining us. If you're watching this podcast, he's joining us from a hotel room because they had a big red carpet event in New York last night. So we're really excited to get into this film, like you talked about, Karen, and talk about what it means to create a cultural movement for change and good change. There's a cultural movement away from the things that we value and morals, but there's also another, I think, sleeping giant that's about to be awakened. So, Jaco, thanks again for joining us today.
Both of you, thank you so much for the work you do, your platform, your voice. As a parent in America, a parent of young children, thank you for what you do as well. God bless you.
Well, with that, we'd love to dive into this new documentary. Let's just open it off with this exciting new documentary. And it's a tough documentary. It's on a tough topic, but can you share with us a little bit of the inspiration behind the documentary and then just kind of walk our listeners through what's in it?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, and it's PG-13. It's 13 and up and really younger, but I ask parents to use discretion when they watch it to where their child is, because we always want to, child development's an interesting thing. And every 13-year-old's not the same. And so the parent needs to read the room and understand their child. But parents have to watch this, and teenagers do too. For us to fight human trafficking, child sexual exploitation, 28 years of fighting this, we must come to a realization that America is the number one nation on earth creating demand. And supply meets demand. So we can look at the border situation and say, well, migrants, children are being trafficked. True. But who's buying? Who's buying the child for sex? Who's purchasing sex? We must look at that. And for that, that's accountability hour in America. We must look at ourselves, and we have to ask ourselves, are we complicit? Do we look the other way? Or potentially, do we demand content? And in the most grotesque form, do we create the content, right? And so for that matter, we have to look at America's history. So this film looks at America's history. So truly it's a movie about the moral fall of America. Morality leaving the building, morality leaving the home, and culture. And you're right. There's a big cultural movement to move us away from that moral compass. In my life, the Word of God, the moral compass. So we start in the movie in 1933. There's a tremendous amount of education that people don't know. Even people in the fight say, Jaco, I didn't know. I didn't know Joseph Stalin had something to do with this. I didn't know Hugh Hefner, the true story. I didn't know porn. And we walk them through from 1933 to 2023 in the first act of the film. Real education, knowledge is power. And then we design the war. What is the war we're really in? Why are we fighting, comprehensive sex ed? Why are they trying to sexualize kids in the classroom? And there's nothing explicit in the movie. These are 60 experts interviewed over a 3.5-year period to bring the best of the best minds to say why. Truly show us the root of this thing. And then the third act of the film is a massive call to action, tangible things parents can do. But in a nutshell, it's time to take accountability. It's time to look and say, okay, we must as a nation truly, because no president's going to fix this. You can't. No man from the top fixes the heart of men.
Right.
And that's a personal thing. That's restoring fathers back to the home, earning the hearts of our daughters back. their identity cemented in the home so they don't ask for it online. So some predator cannot sweep her off her feet and really make her complicit by sharing naked images of herself or subjective content or engaging in explicit conversation. So we really, it's about taking that narrative back, saying we actually can change this. We can.
Yeah.
Evil does not own this. We can actually make a difference here, such as what Covenant Eyes is doing.
I love it. And the film, just for our listeners, is called Sex Nation, The Price of Immorality. And it's interesting. I was looking through who you have in the film, Jaco, and you guys you have the who's of who in this film, being able to share probably testimony, share experiences in their particular areas. You've got politicians, you've got law enforcement, sex trafficking survivors. You've got our friend Don Hawkins from the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. You've got Marcel van der Watt, who also is with Nkosi, who we just spoke with on the podcast as well. So it's exciting to see how a lot of the people you talk to are the people we're talking to, and we're all on the same team. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's right. In the film, I say these voices are voices we trust that we've walked with for decades. And they're voices that can really help the American parent today. You know, whether it's law enforcement or nurses or nurse practitioners or people in policy or safe houses, it is the collective body to say, look, let's corroborate here what the real issue is. And in this powerful testimony, my sister Ilanka's story is in this. Her testimony is powerful. It's a testimony of redemption, that we can restore a life. And if a family was to walk through something horrific as their 12-year-old boy is addicted to pornography, now what? Is it all lost? No, it's not. There's hope. We can restore that life. Fathers can actually have tools today to safeguard their families without living in obscurity in the woods, that you can actually interact in society and protect your children. You can protect them. There's hope. So the film brings incredible hope. It addresses the situation from expert opinion. And my prayer truly is every American family has to watch this film, because it's going to arm them as parents, and it's going to arm the youth. It addresses issues in a conversational manner, non-exploitive, no sensationalism whatsoever. We don't need it. It's bad enough.
Yeah.
To really just say, this is the situation, but there is hope. We can win this battle.
The thing I found really interesting, I was reading an article that you had done for a newspaper in the Dallas area, I believe it was, and you were just talking about how pornography is, you know, we're not addressing that, and that seems to be at the root of all of this. You know, that is what's fueling this industry of trafficking human beings. Can you talk a little bit about why addressing pornography at the family level is so imperative to this fight?
Yeah, you know, I don't get, without asking you how old you are, but when I grew up, you know, we could trust society to help us raise kids with the same set of values. You could trust that the school principal and the pastor and the football coach had similar ideology. It was the community is protecting the child. Those days, we don't live in those days today. So today, every conversation that we thought we could abdicate to maybe the teacher or the football coach is now a home conversation. It truly is back to the beginning. It's in the home. It's that whole, 10 families have a school classroom on the farmhouse and they're raising. It's not community, because we don't share the same values societally today. There are forces prowling. So for that reason alone, these conversations now have to come into the home. And COVID made parents say, well, what, should I homeschool? We homeschool. I'm not saying everybody has to homeschool, but you must take ownership of these conversations in the home, or society will have them for you. And you're not going to like the outcome. So now it is uncomfortable. It absolutely is. I tell fathers, we have father-son camps that we do where I tell fathers, you must engage in your daughter's life when she goes through puberty, where fathers typically disengage. Why? You can earn her heart, or the predator will earn her heart. If we are engaging in the family now. So for that, it's a must. Now, pornography is an interesting subject, because it's very difficult to get pastors, leaders, even those fighting human trafficking and fathers to talk pornography, because often they're in the trap themselves.
So
and
true.
you cannot, biblically, you cannot serve two masters. You cannot, the spirit you're in agreement with when you're in the spirit of lust in porn will not allow you to take a stance publicly. You cannot. Just pick one. And so for that matter, if we think about it this way, 97% of prostitutes have filed cases with law enforcement of being raped and being trafficked. So prostitution has trafficking in it. There's no such thing as pornography without abuse. It's abusive. It's violent. The people you watch are being abused, but you know who's being abused the most, truly? The one watching. Because the one watching is becoming addicted, and his whole world or her whole world is about to implode. Because pornography is the greatest thief. It steals everything. It's a violent drug because it's internal. I talk in the movie about external drugs like alcohol, opioids. It's external. So if I remove you physically from proximity from the drug, it doesn't have power over you. Right. Well, sex and sexuality is internal. I've worked with men and they go, I haven't watched porn in 6 months. And I said, you're lying to yourself. And they go, no, I haven't. And I said, close your eyes. What do you see? And they start weeping because they go, it's all there. There's a library. It's there. So there's a lot of work to be done to heal that brain. Young boys, 12, 8, 10. We're working with a 12-year-old boy now, addicted. He was introduced to it by a neighbor. It's a lot of work to undo that.
Right.
Yeah. So fathers, first of all, the men, I'm not calling you out. I'm calling you up to a higher place. The title of father is the greatest title, that and husband, that you'll ever receive. You cannot be in pornography trying to protect your son and train him to not be. You cannot be the one smoking, telling your son not to smoke. This is an hour where fathers have to say, I must walk a moral life. I must purify my lifestyle. I must get help. And then I must impart that into my family. No one in society is going to have that conversation with your son or your daughter. And when a boy watches pornography, average age of entry now 8. Remember one thing, guys. When I was in high school, to get porn, I had to fake an ID, which I didn't, but I would have had to fake an ID, lie to the 7-Eleven clerk to get a book that was in a black cover on a shelf. That book, Hustler, Playboy, would have had women in the book, maybe scantily dressed. That's not the introduction to pornography that an 8-year-old boy sees today.
No.
Right.
Today, they see gang violence.
That's right.
Proposed as if the individuals like it. Now, how is that 8-year-old boy going to respect women? How's he going to defend innocence, defend the least? How's he going to treat his mother and his, how is that boy going to treat every girl like she's potentially going to be his wife, paying it forward? Right? He will not.
Right.
Because what he's introduced to is not a life of intimacy as honor. Intimacy is not for my eyes. Their intimate moment is not for my eyes. God didn't design your intimate moment for my eyes. Covenant eyes, it's not for my eyes. I'm not supposed to see it. Why? Because when I see it, it corrupts me. It violates them. It breaks trust, but it corrupts me. So that's why this must be a conversation in the home.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. And I want to just draw this out a little bit further, Jaco, because in this film, you talk about this whole sexual immorality, sexual exploitation being part of a sinister movement. And I think sinister is just a perfect word to use here. Can you talk a little bit about the background aspect? Because I'm wondering if people have heard of a name of Alfred Kinsey, if they've heard of the Kinsey Institute. These are some of the things that we talk about as we're going out and giving talks, but I think it's important for people to realize this isn't something that just happened. This was part of a plot.
Sinister is the right word, and there's a plot. And in the film, and again, I cannot reiterate enough, people, please watch this film. You're going to be so empowered. You're going to feel empowered. But here's the deal, though. It is a sinister plot. It's a plot that started in 1933. Now, it was initiated pre-1933, but putting America and America's children square in the crosshairs, okay, was an actual plot outlined, written, designed in 1933. And we came into agreement with that plot when we signed the Humanist Manifesto in 1933. And there's a lot to be said in this movie about John Dewey, one of the signers and the drafters of the Humanist Manifesto. John Dewey's mentor was Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin, and yes, I'm talking about Stalin, that guy. Stalin invited Dewey. Dewey visited Stalin, okay? He visited Stalin, returned to America, and said, surely the Russian education system is the greatest of all, and we built the American public education system on Joseph Stalin's projection for one thing, infiltrate the American youth and corrupt them morally. This is pre-World War. It's a sinister plot. The plot had a wrench thrown in when they lost the Second World War, when Germany lost and the Russians got kicked to the curb, and America rose as a freedom beacon. But then the plot got reignited through science, and it's always science. What did we just walk through in COVID? The word science. And then enters Alfred Kinsey. Kinsey was a disciple of some of these other mentors, and then he had disciples. Kinsey's disciple was Hugh Hefner. And so it's a plot, strategic plot. They didn't start with asking, what is a woman? They said, what is marriage? First, they said, should prayer be in school? Then it is, what is marriage? The ultimate goal is to absolutely destroy the nuclear family, because the nuclear family holds these truths self-evident. The word of God, freedom, liberty, justice for all. It's actually the nuclear family that protects that, not the Constitution or even the government. It's the nuclear family. How better to destroy a family than to destroy the lives of the children in the family? Do you know that so often, over 50% of the time, when a child goes through sexual violence or a case of abuse, or the child is the abuser, do you know that the family ends up in divorce? It rips, shreds the family. It destroys God's legacy. So actually, it's a sinister plot that started in Genesis, a war between evil and God, Satan and God.
Yeah, absolutely. And just that history alone is worth watching this documentary, because so many people don't understand that this is not just showing up at our doorstep. You know, it's funny because you listen to podcasters and personalities talking about different things happening in our culture, drag shows and all the rest. You know what? That's all just a symptom of something that's been happening long time back, and so we just need to be aware of that. I find it really interesting that everybody talks about all of these other issues, drag shows or, is this right or wrong? But they don't address pornography. Is it because so many people are actively involved in pornography and it's such a taboo topic? Because when we start talking about pornography, we have to start looking inward, like you said earlier. I mean, we have to start addressing our issues before we can start addressing it across the globe, right?
Yeah, and there's biblical references for it. Look at the log in your own eye before you look at the splinter in the eye of a brother. And we so want to accuse them. We're not them. We're not woke. We're not left. We're not right. It's always someone else. And evil loves that, because the truth is, honestly, the honest truth. And I'm a guy that, I want to change lives, real results. I'm not interested in likes and tweets and posts. It's lives transformed. Lives redeemed. So for me, I must find the root of the issue. The root in our culture is this: we've normalized sex with people. Sex has become an exercise. It's lost the meaning of intimacy, the true purpose for two to become one and to procreate, right, in God's image. That has been desensitized even in the Christian conservative movement, because they're complicit, because they partake. How often do you not see individuals in the conservative Christian movement posing scantily dressed, fighting for the Second Amendment with a weapon in their hand? I'm pro Second Amendment, but I'm not pro you self-objectifying in the process, right? And this is true. So the freedom Americans are crying out for, I always ask, what freedom is it really? Is it even freedom from accountability? Is it even freedom from God, even on the right? Is it freedom from, I want to do as whatever I please? We've normalized pornography to the point where now, unfortunately, even church groups are saying, well, is it really that bad? Porn is a drug. It is violent. The rapid escalation of porn I walk through in an exercise in this film, and I break it down from a cognitive level. It is the only internal drug, and it escalates quickly. And it's vicious. It grabs somebody, and they will not. I have a test. I go to pastors and I talk to them about things. And when I bring up pornography and I say, can we start with porn in the church? If the pastor does not say, yes, let's go, let's get our men free, I know that he himself could be complicit. He himself could be, maybe on a soft level, maybe not graphic, maybe not Pornhub, but images. There's soft porn on Instagram for free. There's hardcore porn on YouTube for free. So if you ask me today, the cancer to our culture, okay, why we're losing America as a culture, I will tell you square in the crosshairs, and it's confirmed by many, Don Hawkins included in this documentary, is pornography. The normalization of you intruding in someone else's private space as if you have a right, thinking that it doesn't affect you, right? It is a violent drug. And so the notion that it doesn't harm anyone, it harms everyone. And I can tell people, look, the people you're watching, they are slaves. Okay? They're pushed into porn because they're not making enough money in trafficking, in prostitution. I can do that. But really what I want people to understand is what it's doing to them. Yeah. How it separates them from God. It separates them from truth, because it's a lie. Porn is a lie. None of it is reality in how an intimate relationship really functions. But now you have 12-year-old boys, 16-year-old boys in their first intimate moment expecting that behavior from her or from him. Yeah. Could never deliver. No wife can live up to that. No husband can, because it's manufactured with cameras and angles, and take one, take 57, take 57 with heroin, take 57 with, other abuse and force. It's not, it cannot be duplicated.
Right.
Such truth.
Yeah. I think, and the thing is too, is we talk to a lot of educators who say now, because young children are being exposed to pornography so young, they're acting out in school towards their teachers and other classmates. So we have to, parents, and specifically fathers, but also mothers, we have got to engage, because you can't just, we use Covenant Eyes, so we're good. It's not necessarily your child's device that's going to expose your child to pornography. It's the friend on the school bus. It's the kid at school. It's someone else is going to expose your child, and you have to prepare them on how and what to do when that happens. So important. I just can't strongly, I want to encourage our listeners to go out and check out Sex Nation, because this documentary is going to equip you with the knowledge you need. And it's gonna prick you in a way to take action. Like, you've got to take action. It's not just having head knowledge. We have to put that knowledge into action.
And I'm reminded too of a quote here, Jaco, by Fulton Sheen, and the quote was, "Wrong is wrong, even if everybody is doing it. Right is right, even if nobody is doing it." So even though we have a widespread problem and our culture tries to normalize all these things, that doesn't mean that it's right or that it's moral.
I cannot say that 1,000 times, please, and I'll listen to it 1,000 times. Freedom, the freedom founding fathers fought for, according to the Word of God, is freedom to do as you ought. As you ought to. We have the freedom to do the right thing. We can choose the right thing, and that's what you're talking about. If you're the only one, doesn't matter what cultures are, we're writing laws in this country as if those laws supersede truth, as if those laws supersede the Word of God. We're lowering the age of consent in many states now to 14, as if that now all of a sudden makes it right? Huge victory last week in the state of Indiana. You mentioned Kinsey. We wrote a bill called SB 12 in Indiana, and that bill is removing pornography from all curriculum. It passed in Oklahoma, and it's in Texas, and it's all over 13 states.
Awesome.
Right? But SB 12 was combined with House Bill 1447, And the Kinsey Institute last Wednesday was defunded by the Indiana state legislature. Right now, the University
Praise
of Indiana, right?
Yes.
I mean, come on. Now, the University of Indiana is still funding the institute. So now we're going after the boosters at the university. But you can't fund this. And so there's proactive things we can do, but it is to make the choice to do the right thing. You made a comment about people engaging and with this film. I'll say this. They go to sexnationfilm.com. They're going to see that it's $8 to watch. All $8 goes into rescuing children, right? I'm going to send you the link to screen it. But here's what I say. This film is not a film that just say, look how bad it is, and this is what they're doing, and can't believe it's terrible. This film has incredible information, but then redemptive action steps. Families that have watched this, almost 1,500 people show up to the Dallas premiere. They walk out of here going, I can actually now go sit with my son and daughter and have a conversation. We've got fathers who are calling their adult daughters in their 20s and 30s saying, hey, if I failed as a father and I didn't ask you, can I ask you now, did you suffer abuse in your teens? Can we get you help? Fathers calling their sons, son, are you potentially struggling with pornography? Can we get you help? This is not about shaming people and canceling people. This is about redeeming them. So that and someone that is redeemed becomes a fighter for truth, a fighter for innocence and virtue and morality.
That's incredible. It sounds like a really powerful documentary that churches could do together, like watch this as a group, small group activity, because I think that's something like collectively when we do it together, it gets easier, right? I know like when I do stuff with other moms, when we talk about topics that are, how do you talk to your kids about this when they're doing it and I'm doing it? It sure feels better to do it with other people, right? Like it gives you a little bit of confidence in what you're doing.
Absolutely. And to that point, if they go to the website, sexnationfilm.com, first thing they're going to see is host a watch party.
Perfect.
Literally. And we give them all the tools, the social media marketing tools, how to do it, what to do. Do it at the youth group. Host it. Host this event. Bring the community together. Host it at your home. And if you don't, and you're so right, some parents will go, if it's just me, but if I can get 3 or 4 other moms with me, we get 20 teenagers in here. It's just easier. And it's an incredible icebreaker with real action items. What they're going to find then is we also supply tremendous resources, including Covenant Eyes. I champion Covenant Eyes as the best of the best. But resources of, okay, we've now identified my son is watching pornography. Which therapist can we trust? Is there an online program? What do we do now? What books should we read and shouldn't read? We're arming them with this cadre of resources. That's not all our resources. We point to our partners, those who are champions like you, and say, come on, collectively, we can change this. We can take the narrative back and deliver a death blow to evil. We can do it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And for our listeners, we'll be sure to put that link, sexnationfilm.com, in the show notes. It's a very easy website to use. Watch Party, as Jaco was just mentioning, is right at the top. You can't miss it. Jaco, this film has been out for about a month and a half now. You've been doing red carpet events going around the nation. Are you seeing a sleeping giant beginning to awake? Are you seeing an awakening, at least, of people wanting to get off their duffs and start to do something?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not just saying it because we produced this film. I'm saying it because it's the truth. People are truly empowered. I'll give you an example of that. A group calls me who saw the film and said, hey, listen, we want to fund a project with you for Sex Nation. And I said, watch parties? And they said, no. Would you please turn Sex Nation into a Bible study for men? Could you please make it an 8-week Bible study? Wow. Could you break it up into 8 parts and all the men in our church can walk through this? Because our daughters deserve this. Our sons deserve fathers. I get chills as I'm sitting here. So yes, a sleeping giant is waking up. Because when you bring people truth, and you give them tangible ways to do something about it, and you then equip them, you empower them, they want to. They don't want their families destroyed. When they learn in this movie, like, guys, you don't want to do the 10 years of therapy. You don't want to see your child go through a divorce because we didn't tackle it when they were struggling. Let's help them now. We're not going to shame them and ostracize them. Firstly, let's prevent for them to fall into the bear trap. But if they're in there, let's go get them and help them. And so, yes. And so now we're working on this Bible study that church groups can take, and can really go into the father's heart, which predominantly the buyer of sex in America is men. There's a strong enough contingent of women, but it's men, right? It's men who buy. So this is not this insurmountable Mount Everest that we just can't climb. We can go to the root of this thing and destroy it, meaning the attack on our culture as we know it from a moral standpoint. We can turn this around.
Yeah, we sure can. And, one of the things I think about is our culture just has this sense of lulling us into passivity, of not wanting to take action, of, well, somebody else will do it. But who's actually doing it? If everybody's sitting there saying somebody else will do it, somebody else will do it, somebody else will do it, then who actually is doing it? And what I love about this is you're getting out there, you're showcasing 60 other people who are out there who are actually doing it and are presenting a model that people can follow.
Yes, and honestly, I'll ask parents today more than ever, do you want someone else to educate your child? Do you really want someone else to have this conversation? You do not, because culturally, they're not going to move your child in the right direction. So this could be the greatest era for parenting in the United States. We can redefine what family looks like here. We have an opportunity. There's a problem, but I tell my own kids and my staff, don't bring me problems. Come to me saying, hey, I identified an opportunity, and it's presenting itself as a challenge. But it's an opportunity. We can actually become a society that parents really, really well, but it's going to be tough because we got to take ownership. We actually have to do it. And in lock arms, mother to mother, Moms for America, Moms for Liberty, that's great. But even Jaco is not going to come into your home physically. And you abdicate your role as a father. And I know your son and your daughter were entrusted to you by God for you to steward them.
That's right.
Right? They're gifts. They're yours. Amen. Right? And often the family's abusers, and that's they need help. And this is where I'll tell a family member, if there's abuse in the family, if you see something, you must say something. You're doing a disservice to the one that's being abused, but you're also doing a disservice to the abuser. The abuser is never going to change or get help if you aid and abet, if you look the other way, if you bury your head in the sand. It takes courage. We end this film by saying it's time to be brave.
That's a great call to action. Yeah, as we bring today's episode to a close, I want to inspire all of our listeners to go out there and take a look at this documentary. And how long is the documentary?
It's long. It's 2 hours.
2
but
hours?
It's worth it.
Okay.
Come on.
2 hours?
2 hours to change your family. Come on.
Yeah. It's worth the investment of time, and you can break it up into 2 segments if you need to. But people, it is there to inspire you to take action. So please go out and check out this documentary. We cannot urge you enough. We have got to engage Christians all across this nation. We can make a difference. We can change the trajectory if we work together. And this documentary will help open your eyes and give you the tools you need. So I just want to throw that out there as a word of inspiration to others to take action.
Thank you. You guys are warriors. I pray God's favor and blessing over you. I speak it over you. And it's amazing to see what you do and the boldness to have a voice. SexNationFilm.com. Please and thank you. God bless you.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to share that link. If you didn't catch it, it'll be in the show notes. Karen, for a takeaway for me today, I think about how many parents come to us or church leaders and they're like, what can we do? What should we do? What's the first step to be able to address pornography, be able to address the sexual exploitation? Well, guess what? Here's one of those steps. Get a group together and watch this film. It's that easy.
Yeah. Agreed. Absolutely. And it also starts in your own home. So, get the video, educate yourself, and start working in your own family. And then from there, you can start bringing in others and educating others as well. I mean, sometimes we just have to start small, and those small things will grow. So thank you, everybody, for joining us for another episode of the Covenant Eyes podcast. We hope that it was educational and informative. And please take that next step. go watch this documentary and share it with your church members. And let's get out there and change culture. From everyone at Covenant Eyes, God bless and take care.